just start by giving us the tour, the nickel tour. But I'm not going to charge you today. We're standing in the lobby. This is Deborah, by the way. And Deborah lives here, and she is great at helping lead on the front desk and on the bathroom team. And the computers.
Yes, we're learning to type. We're in a typing club.
And Deborah, feel free to walk with us if you want to come along with us, but feel free to do your own stuff if you got stuff to do. Okay. So New Beginnings, big picture, we are standing on land that used to have about 80 to 100 people camping. So this land was owned by the University of Arkansas all the way from the road up this mountain. And about 80 to 100 people camped right here. It was not a supported camp, so there was a lot of the problems you see all around the country. There's always three issues at encampments: sanitation and hygiene stuff, trash and all that. There's often violence at unsupported encampments, and also
men like a lot of stuff.
Men like a lot of hoarders.
Men like a lot of stuff.
This is true.
Accumulate.
And then sometimes there's unhealthy power dynamics. So that, that strong arm thing of like there's kind of one person that wields power over other people in an unhealthy way. So those are the three common problems with encampments. This particular encampment had a lot of problems with it. We had 4 people die in the camp. There was 1 murder. Remember Michelangelo? And in 2018, the university cleared the camp and said, no, not allowing people to camp on this land anymore. At that time is when we bought the front 5 acres. So we own 2.5 acres that we have cabins and building on now, and then we own the other 2.5 acres that direction too. So we spent many months. Yes, there was there was about this deep trash.
11 haul-offs.
Yes, that's right. Those huge dumpsters we hauled off.
Wow.
Did you ever camp up here?
When they delivered them, they added more to that. It should have only been 2 or 3, but it turned into 11.
There was so much trash.
It was a drop-off instead of a clean-up.
So we ended up, I took probably 4, 5, 6 months meeting with people at their camps around Fayetteville and asking them, what would you want out of a community that was self-run but that had real support in it? How would we keep it safe? How would we keep it clean? How would we provide the supports that you need to maintain and survive? And so growing out of those many, many conversations, we ended up I call it co-creating what New Beginnings ended up looking like. So we opened 2.5 years ago, and it's composed of 20 individual cabins. They're sleeping cabins. They don't have a kitchen or bathroom. And then 1 community building where we're at now. So I'm going to start us in the kitchen, and we'll just walk through the community building, and then we'll circle around outside. All right? Come on. Thanks, Deborah. We have a lot of great resident ambassadors. So we have we will probably be interrupted in a positive way many times. Okay, so the 3 things I'll reference as our kind of core commitments as we move through here. I'll reference them a couple times. One is that we're a low barrier community. We specifically focus on chronically homeless folks. So our average length of homelessness before moving in is about 10 years between the 20 people here. Some are 20 years and 25 years, as low as, just 3 or 4 years. But we focus on that population, which is differentiated from just the episodically homeless, right? And y'all know that. So that means this is the population where it's more likely that there's co-occurring issues with health, chronic health issues, mental health, and behavioral health, especially addictions. And so that population faces much higher barriers to regaining housing and restabilizing their health, because homelessness is a health and housing crisis. So we're a low barrier trying to say, doesn't matter what you're dealing with. You don't have to go fix stuff to be able to move in to get the help. We want you to move in, and then we'll start working on getting that help. We're low barrier. We're resident guided, so the residents here they participated in the design. They've created all the rules for living here, and we'll talk more about that. They take care of it. They have teams, a kitchen team, looks like this. The staff do not clean the kitchen. The kitchen team that lives here does. Bathroom team, now, so that means some days the bathrooms look great, and some days we are struggling. So I know some of you are use the restroom. I don't know the condition today. Decent? Okay, good. So sometimes, that's this kind of a life skill building that happens. If I've been homeless for 8-10 years, I'm just going from camp to camp to camp. I really don't have to be a good neighbor. I don't have any expectations on my day. I'm just kind of surviving each day. So the self-run piece offers people a chance to develop those life skills, to take care of myself, take care of my home, get along with neighbors, be accountable for rules. So we are resident guided. And then third commitment is that we're housing focused. This is not a permanent home for anyone. So from day one, you're meeting with the social worker. What's your rehousing plan? What are the barriers to getting back into housing? So Egypt is our social worker. We'll wave at her as we go by. And then we have a nurse as well that helps folks work on health goals. So those are our 3 big commitments. So we're standing in the kitchen. We offer breakfast and dinner every day as our commitment from New Beginnings. When you live here, you'll have that. There's a lot of churches in South Fayetteville that offer lunch meals. So like on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there's always a community-based meal. And so we just encourage people, get up, get moving, like factor that into your day. But with lunch, we don't provide here. Except on Friday, because there is not that. So we do Taco Friday today. Is today Friday? It's Thursday. It is Friday, yes. So we'll be having Taco Friday here all day. Pardon? Oh, yeah. So then we do provide the meals on the weekends, yes. So that's how we use this room. Now, this is the only room that has limited access. So every resident here can come and go when they want. Everyone has a key fob when you move in to give you access to the community. And the resident on duty that's at the front lobby, they have keys to every other place on the property. So they can restock paper towels, get the garden tools out, all that stuff. But except for this room, because it is a commercial kitchen, we have to pass health code. So what is on staff is if there's a situation where a person is out of it and not doing their kitchen duty, or there's some, argumentation about who's supposed to be doing what, it is our job to at least maintain the level of we can pass health code anytime if they surprise visit. All right, this kitchen. We'll just kind of walk through the building. I'll pause in each room. So this is our lobby and computer room. We typically have a person at the front desk. The residents manage this by having this calendar. So every day of the week, there's a morning and afternoon shift on the front desk. And so this is how they keep track of who's on this afternoon. The person this morning has a situation where she can't be here, so we're just covering for her. But then there's the kitchen team, bathroom team, and recycling and trash team. So there's the names on that and the days this week they will do what. Each team has a leader. So there's 3 council leaders that they elect to serve for 2 months, and each leader's over one of those teams. So I spend time meeting with just that leadership group to work through what are the community issues, what are the problems, how can I help go resolve conflict, make plans like this to kind of help them stay organized. So that's also cool. It's a weekly expectation that helps people start managing their time around appointments that are critical, and then they interact with the public. So folks bring in donations and they get to meet a person that actually lives here, so that's cool. And these computers are free for use for folks too. We do have Wi-Fi over the whole property, but then this is kind of where you can get help, on a normal computer with a staff person maybe helping you figure out how to do it. All right. Moving on down this way. They just repaired this door yesterday, so I don't know if it's actually working. But here are our 2 offices. So the first office is Egypt. Hey, Kevin. Kevin's our intern with the University of Arkansas. Good morning. How are you? So Egypt is our social worker on site. She meets with each resident each week. So when we start, we're working often on those very first goals of, I don't have an ID. I don't have a social security card. I don't have my birth certificate. So how could I even get a job or apply for housing or apply for food stamps? Like I can't even prove who I am. So documents is often a very first goal. And then those mainstream benefits, so health insurance and SNAP benefits and all of that. And then they start assessing, your housing history, your housing strengths and barriers. What are you good at? What are the barriers you face to overcome to get back into housing? So criminal legal issues are really entangling and takes a lot of time to sort out and work through. Health issues are big, mental health issues, and then relationships to addictions are really key. We've had 4 people pass away while living here. And it just kind of speaks to how once someone is chronically homeless, often there's really serious health issues going on in life. It's not just a get you in and get you starting work. Like you have really longer term chronic problems related to your health. So that's why our nurse is part of those initial assessments, and then they work together building a plan for what's my pathway to getting back into housing. And then each week there is a mandatory case management session they complete. And that's when they start making progress on those goals. And there's a lot of ways people are successful before they move out. We want to give credit for taking care of my health, and quite a few people have applied for disability and have been awarded that, so I've increased my income, I've gotten my documents, I've stabilized some mental health issues. Like there's a lot of things to take credit for as success, even though our ultimate goal is to see everyone move out into permanent, stable housing. This back office is also flex space, so I'll share it with the nurse. Sometimes there's a therapist in there. We have some free therapy services available. So these 2 offices end up kind of being flexible, but this is kind of where the one-on-one sessions happen with all the residents here. All right, I'll walk us down the hallway. We won't spend too much time at the bathrooms, but we have 3 bathrooms. 2 have ADA showers, so the roll-in showers with seats built in, and then 1 bathtub. So I'll just highlight again, it's all resident run, so they each, there's a whiteboard up here that they use to have the schedule and to write notes to each other on the team, and just stay on top of restocking it and keeping it clean and dignified. And then around this corner, yeah, the washroom. So these back closets are where all the supplies are. So the resident on duty has keys to all these, and that's where they can be working. During that desk shift is when they also have a list of duties to be, restock this and clean up that. And once again, it can vary. Today, I think we got a really well cared for community building. Some days we struggle with that, I'll be honest, and that's the context in which we're giving that coaching. Sometimes it's interpersonal conflict. Sometimes it's that someone is in a different mental health state for 2 weeks and they're not chipping in how they normally do. So the team has to step up, and sometimes there's misgivings about that, So there's kind of a constant dynamic of how do we as a community take care of our home. And then there's a lot of learning opportunities in that. So this is the laundry room. There's 2 washers, 2 dryers. I think we lost our board, but what they do is if I'm putting my laundry in the wash, I just write my cabin number on this whiteboard for that washing machine. So if you come in and they're both full, you know who to go find to say, hey, your clothes are done. Move them to the dryer so I can start. And that was a plan they came up with. I will say the self-guided piece is very time consuming because a lot of our people need a lot of support to process a situation and understand it right, to work through, brainstorm options, to deal with the conflict that comes. A lot of us here trigger each other. There's sometimes histories of harm. People that have been homeless for 10 years know each other and maybe have had occasions to hurt each other. And so just dealing with something I'm angry about, even if it's as simple as laundry, can turn into real problems. And so a lot of the work in the self-governance part is supporting people in that self-governance and not taking control, but also actively supporting so that they can do as much as they're So these are the basic facilities. When I interviewed a lot of folks out in their camps, it was just the basics. We need like sanitation, like we need a place to put the trash. We need like a lady told me I hang out in my cabin for my tent for days, sometimes trying to work up the courage to walk to the laundromat because I'm worried of what's in between here and there. I'm sure y'all have heard and known people that tell you about, if I get out of the hospital, there's someone that comes in with a machete, takes my pills and sells them. That happens on the beginning of the month when disability checks start. Is a very vulnerable time for people that live in the woods or on the street, because the bullies are going to try to get money from you for the first 2 weeks. So anyway, just having these basic facilities just supports having a more healthy life and gives people the opportunity to use and build their skills as they work on their health and housing goals. All right, I'm going to take us outside this way, and then we'll enter through the gate that all the residents use. So we're kind of in the middle of the woods, which is nice because nature is really calming. If you've ever read much about trauma-informed design, about designing spaces that can support healing for people who've been through a lot of trauma in life, that can be really common in the chronic homeless population. So nature is one of the big design principles. How do you get more light and plants in our lives? And so you even see it in the main building, like we're kind of, it's not a fancy building, it's a double wide, but trying to get some plants, trying to embrace having living things around, having materials that have some organic stuff like wood topped desks these are all these principles of trauma informed design to try to help have an environment that feels where someone can connect to other people and have some healing supported, rather than often with homeless services, it's often like a basement in a church that's like dark and dank and no light because that's the best we can do. Because we were able to start from scratch, we tried to embrace being out in the woods. Can be very calming. An example of that actually is this little fence. Doesn't seem like much, but I wanted to do the whole community in a material that was more organic and not like a chain link fence. 80% of people that live here now have been through jail, sometimes dozens of times for a lot of minor issues and sometimes for some serious issues. But I didn't want to communicate a jail yard feel, so those chain link fences could be really triggering. So we tried to aim for something better. Now, I couldn't afford to do the whole perimeter, so it's actually just the front, and then the chain link begins at the back, right here on this side. So, and what I actually focused on was this gate. We come through this gate hundreds of times a day. So how do I make that not feel like I'm going into a jail yard, something like that? So, well, I mentioned the key fob. So this is what every resident has to be able to unlock their gated community, we call it. Now, the joke on the street, Deborah, is what? It's a concentration camp. Compound. The compound. But we embrace gated community for New Beginnings. So that's how someone gains access. If someone's behavior is unsafe, and we'll look at that, the safety rules that we have, this is what's suspended. So if you're suspended for a day or a week, it's just that this key fob is turned off in an app that we have, and you no longer have access to the community because you couldn't be a safe neighbor. There's also the issue of prohibited items. Now, this is a common around the country of trying to figure out if we're screening in people that have been without housing long term, that have serious issues in life, where we expect to serve people with active addictions, then how do we support people while following the law? So inside the village, we don't prohibit anything that society doesn't prohibit. So alcohol is permitted. We do ask that someone keep that in their cabin. And we do regulate your behavior. So it's about the safety of your behavior, not the substance in your system. So alcohol is legal in Fayetteville, and so alcohol is legal at New Beginnings. Illegal drugs are not. So we don't allow illegal drugs in the community or paraphernalia. We also don't allow weapons inside, machetes, a lot of things that people consider tools when they're living outside, especially if someone that's camping, could also pose a danger to when you're living in a gated community. So we don't allow weapons or anything that a staff person interprets as a weapon. So sometimes even a baseball bat or a golf club, depending on the history and the person, could be considered a weapon. And we don't allow fuel. So there is a separate area on the other side of that shed that's also gated and that has a key fob access. And I can get inside that, and then there's a locker system that's an amnesty locker. So it's a no questions asked storage locker, and that is something that a resident could use to make sure that they are following the rules here. I can't give anyone permission to do something illegal, but I can say we provide amnesty lockers that are no questions asked storage for people so that they can honor the safety rules of the community. We find it works pretty well. All right, well, come on in. Ma'am, the speed limit is 5 miles an hour. Ugh, I guess this is not going to work. I can go ahead and show you. Let me grab my key really quick. I'm going to let y'all look inside this one. Ed, have y'all looked at this product specifically?
We haven't been hands-on.
Okay, great.
So we've seen photos.
Okay. Yeah, so we found this product. Initially, we were going to build yeah, we were building these little A-frames, and yeah, my fire marshal did not like them.
We've worked through
Have you been through this? Yes. So this product from Pallet, we love, and take a look inside. They employ formerly incarcerated, formerly and homeless people in building them. So we love that being part of our story, honestly. But check them out.
Just like in the picture.
Good.
So it's got heat and cool.
Yeah.
And then you've got your little breaker box.
So the features we have in here are, let me step in, heat in the wall, the air conditioning here. We got USB plugs for phones and iPads. Y'all probably have the same in our parks. People are huddled around light posts using those outlets. So this is a place to plug a phone. We had a donor give everyone an iPad. So people here do get an iPad, and there's Wi-Fi over the whole property. So we kind of try to support that. A tablet and a phone is all the electricity you need. Some people use these for an essential oil diffuser. They do come with actually a clip light that plugs into that too. Typically, we cover up this outlet. So this is a proper outlet here. In every cabin here, this is just closed over, and you're not allowed to have your own fridge, your own hot plate, your own microwave, coffee maker, tea. We don't allow those things. We cover those outlets up. There's some fire risks. There's some just misuse risks. There's electricity, just utility bill. Like, I love having it predictable or controlled. So this is actually covered up in most cabins. What you're looking at here, though, is we starting a program. Actually, yesterday was our opening date. We're partnered with the hospital locally to provide medical respite for homeless folks when they discharge from the hospital. And so we're adding 4 brand new cabins with their own bathroom to share off of this side of the community. And those 4 cabins will be exclusively for kind of a rotating group of people that temporarily stay while they finish recuperating. And that's what enabled me, the grant I got for that enabled me to hire our nurse full time. She was coming 4 hours a week. It's all we could really afford, and she did all the health stuff. But now we have her full time because she's running that program. So city processes can be slow sometimes.
Really?
So
Surely not.
it's going to take us.
Those are mayors and city managers.
That's what I think. No. So it's going to be probably June before we actually have the 4 units and the bathroom installed. Until then, we just chose the last 2 units that came open. We designated them as our medical respite cabins. So this is why this has got an outlet, because we have a fridge for medication that might need stored. And a person that will stay here, there's a group of interns from JBU University, from University of Arkansas, that will work with our nurse and the hospitalists at the hospital. So the primary care physicians based at the hospital, they're on call 24/7 for us. And then we have a plan of care with the respite clients until when they regain their health that they had before they entered the hospital, they discharge. So they're not long-term residents, but they're allowed to be here while they're participating in that. So anyway, that's the difference. We cover up the outlet. The other, Cherie, you see going on in her power chair. So we helped her get that power chair. She was in a ill-fitting manual chair for a long time outside. And so hers does have an outlet exposed so she can actually power her chair. So there's some case by case. If someone had a sleep machine they really had to have, we can uncover that. But in general, we want just the USB electricity. There's a smoke alarm. There's an emergency exit, actually, that egress. We may have to rethink this, to be honest with you. But there's an emergency egress there that the fire marshal liked. It's not required. Anyway, they are well insulated. These are the 2.5-inch walls and floor. So it's the winter package, I guess. We get cold here. One thing that we've had as a problem, honestly, is this ridge cap. We have had some water intrusion issues on it. And they designed it for the Pacific Northwest, where they didn't think they need air conditioning much. Mm-hmm. So the raisable ridge cap was part of their climate control strategy. And here, we're going to have air conditioning. And so we really don't need a movable ridge cap. But it's kind of a fail point in the design, I think. The new ones we're buying from Pallet have a single angled roof line, and so that design has addressed that issue, and I don't think any of their future products will have that same problem. We've got curtains on the windows, but it's actually, when you take the curtains off or open them up, it really fills with a lot of light. People really report just liking these because it feels tall enough, you get natural light in, you got your basics, so it's not Shangri-La, but it really does meet those basic needs that people have.
And what's the cost?
Yeah. When we bought them, these were $12,500. They're more than that now. Our new ones are costing I think $18,000.
But they're the ones with the restroom.
Right. Well, no, not, there's one shared restroom for all 4.
Restroom for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the new ones have a better roof design. They don't have this exposed ribbing inside. It looks a lot more like a sheetrock wall. It doesn't come with this is a fold bed that folds up against the wall. The new ones don't have anything like that. It's just a floor. The window is a nicer, more normal looking, just mainstream window. We kind of joke these are like dollhouse windows, but theirs is the kind you crank open like this. It's just one window in the unit. So it's visually it looks better. I think the insulation is better. The foundation. So these are a berm foundation with gravel. The new ones, I think the implementation guide has kind of a wood frame you build underneath it, so you can get it level and all that. And then the roof especially is that step up. You could put 2. So you've seen on the photos, you could do 2 beds on here. I would probably do that if I was doing short-term stays. If this was an emergency shelter community, lots of cities around the country are using them that way, and you're cycling people through a lot. because you're focused on people that really need that quick hand up. We have focused on people that have much more long-term, co-occurring, complicated issues. So I expected longer tenancy, and so that's why I think we'll succeed better with the single unit occupancy. Any other questions about the cabin itself?
What I read is that you can put them up just in a matter of a couple of hours.
Yeah. So their team comes and does it. I mean, it was probably for all 20 of these, it was 48 hours because they were shocked at the humidity. It was like September. They were working early and then they're like just covered in sweat. They're like, how do y'all deal with this? They had to take a few hour break. But yeah, their team is awesome. I mean, they fly him out. They flat packed. He's coming just flat packed, and then they just go up so fast.
Yeah, once you know how to do one, it's just real easy. Just,
Yeah, and they're great to work with. Honestly, like they came back out when we had the water intrusion issues. They sent a guy on a plane out here to redo how tight can we get this ridge cap. You know, how airtight, how watertight can we make the cap. So they've been great to work with. All right. Well, let me just give you a little more tour of the grounds, and then we'll sit inside for a while. Come on over and see our garden. So the cabins really are, the essential feature is to have a shelter. We like the approach of 24/7 shelter rather than like overnight shelter and then another place that's like day services or drop-in services. We like having someone 24/7, especially chronically homeless people who, if you're trying to maintain contact with, their life can be very volatile. 2 weeks at a time, a month at a time, they're just gone off the radar, or their head is in a different space. Their phone numbers change constantly, and so it's really hard to just maintain communication. So having everyone here allows us to develop a lot more of a relationship, get to know someone and what they need, and to really maintain contact, to successfully take steps forward and attend appointments and all of that. So that's why we like the 24/7 approach. It also gives people separation. When you read the surveys, and I surveyed a lot of people in the woods that matched up with the national data, what people don't like about conventional shelter is, someone has PTSD and they can't sleep on a bunk bed with 15 strangers nearby. Like, it just is not going to happen. Or someone has behavior stuff where they laugh. We have a person here that laughs all the time. I don't know what is the driver of that, but I know I could not sleep in the same room with this person. Someone that bangs their head against a wall. In fact, it was so bad that we had to pull together their neighbors, and we all sat down at the table and said, no one can sleep. Like, what is going on? How can we? It was a beautiful day when that happened because this person's neighbors started telling him, I struggle with mental health stuff, and I think it's time for you to get checked out and find out why you're having to hit your head against the wall all night. Like, will you let Egypt help you? It was a really beautiful moment because hearing from his neighbors is different than hearing from me. And he goes, oh, they've known each other for 5-10 years. And he was like, okay. And he gave everyone a hug, and he told them, and he did. He went and got checked out and started taking some new meds. And he told them, until I get that figured out, I will punch a pillow at night. That's my solution for the next couple weeks while we try to figure out a long-term solution. So we try to really encourage that accountability among neighbors, but also support people that may have behavior issues that make it where conventional shelter just can't successfully shelter them. They can't succeed in it. So the space between cabins, the privacy, the sense of control, your key, the sense of safety is the number one trauma-informed design principle is safety. Safety, peer involvement. Our staff is 80% people that have been homeless. All the support-focused staff have been homeless, usually both as a child and as an adult, which is the biggest predictor of if you'll experience homelessness as an adult is, did your family experience it as homeless? So statistically, the most predictive thing in my life. So having people that have firsthand experience as the support team helping me recover, who've walked that journey in some way, is really helpful. So those are all just things we try to embrace. The garden has been really cool. We have a garden coach. She comes out every Tuesday. She started off as a volunteer, and then I found some money to kind of throw her a stipend, but she's worth far more. Uh, so the residents get to choose what they want to grow, and then she coaches them through the how. So some of it is like allotment style. So like there's one bed here, right here, that is one person's, and she's going to grow just what she wants. And as long as she maintains it, it'll stay hers to grow, because she just doesn't work well with a team. Like she doesn't want to be on a team doing it. She can do her part. But the rest of the beds are all things. Pardon?
Some folks are like that.
That's true.
That's normal. That's nothing unusual.
That's right. That's right. That is perfectly normal. So the other beds, everyone decided what to grow. Jessica comes in and helps them grow. We eat a lot of it. We have there's AARP has a program with people over 55 where they're working on jobs, stuff, want to still be in the workforce. They actually pay them to volunteer at a site. So we have a chef who is volunteering on our side. It's not on our books, but she does a great job of helping us eat the food we grow in our menu planning for the evenings. And then we actually sell products too. So JoJo's Flamin' Hot Sauce. JoJo is the person that would be on desk. You don't get to meet her today, but she is the most passionate about this garden. So we grow a lot of peppers. We make our own hot sauce and we sell that. We sell out of that both years that we've harvested that and made it. We pickle our own pickles and we make seasoning salt. So like there's an herb bed, and so we mix a seasoning salt with those fresh herbs, and we give that honestly to donors at Christmas time is what we usually do with that. So anyway, the gardens are really lovely. When you come back, it's epic. Like if you were here in the summertime, like the garden is really full of butterflies, full of food, pick and eat. And there's really a therapy in that too. I saw someone one day like talking to their plant, like just encouraging it. It was very touching. So this ground, I will say, is it's shale, so you're going up a mountain here. So we started off just dumping a bunch of mulch down here, so we try to kind of stop it from growing. We'll have to figure out our long-term solution. One little problem we had to address was over here. So this was like it kind of just turned into a pond. Every time it rained, it would fill up and sit for a month, and we'd have the mosquitoes and all that. So last year, some guys volunteered to come in with a little bobcat if we were in it, and they created this little scaping and some new drainage to get some water out, and we planted local pollinators. So it looks completely different this year than last year, and these are the kind of things that get the wet feet plants, so they end up with like 4 feet of roots, and they absorb tons of water. And then we do have some to get rid of. So our standing water, we still have a little bit. We've got some frogs getting like really loud now, and everyone complained. Yeah, you can see the tadpoles. So everyone complained, like, Solomon, these frogs, and we got them like, well, it's, I don't know what to do. And then about a week later, I catch somebody run a hose from the faucet, and he's refilling his pond. And I said, what on earth? And he's like, well, the frogs are all going to die. Like, I want to keep the frogs. Now I can't go to sleep without the frog sound. So it's meant to be a drainage pond, but he's refilling it. Anyway, every year our plan is to kind of reclaim a section to have some greenery, have some life, have multiple outdoor sitting areas. Nature is so healing. We have 4 fruit trees over there, so we're not pros at this. Like, we rely on volunteers and the extension office and all that cool stuff. But we do get free compost from City of Fayetteville. They have a food organic compost program, so we get free compost, and we send our organic waste out on that recycling program. So anyway, just seeing this also kind of gives you a better vantage. Sometimes we do weekly cabin inspections, so it's a health standard that we hold people to. You can be cluttered, but you got to have a hygienic environment. That has been a challenge, I will say. That's the challenge. But the leaders are part of that inspection. So a staff person and the 3 leaders go, and pass or fail people. Outdoors, we've a little bit struggled with. Like initially, I was super strict about you can only have like these 4 things outside your cabin. You can have a bike, and you can have outdoor appropriate chair, and you can have a potted plant. And then it kind of grew, and now we got, like you can see, someone that has a lot of bikes has got a lot of bikes. So, but if you haven't been to a homeless camp, obviously there's there's a lot of that. So anyway, that's how we what the community looks like and feels like, and try to keep some beauty in it. We planted all these tulips and involve people as much as possible. What's up, Craig?
Good morning. Good morning.
Craig is one of the resident leaders. So, it is the mayor and a whole bunch of people. You can come inside and visit with us if you want. We're headed back in. All right, well, let's go land around the tables and just see what kind of questions came up for y'all.
Chris says the people closest to the problem are closest to
That's
the
right.
solution.
That's right. I 100% believe that. I think I'll pause and kind of share just a little bit about this stuff. Yeah, that's got to be the people with lived experience is a major shift.
They're the ones that have the best ideas.
Yeah.
They're the ones living it.
Yeah, the practical. Sometimes we get ideas in our head, and it's like, well, real world, like let's test that. I didn't actually say any words about this. So this is like our community board. Typically, I don't know how true it is right now, but we try to say there's one pane that's like all the permanent stuff. So this is kind of what a bridge housing community is. These are the safety rules and the consequences that you could face if you destroy property or you have harassing behavior or make threats of violence or are violent. So there's kind of different ranges of suspension that would go along with each of those. Our training is around de-escalation and redirection and proactively providing support. We really think that addresses most behavior issues. Actually, I think the co-management, the shared control actually does more to prevent behavior problems than anything. That's why I think it's one of the reasons it's worth it to put in so much work for that, because people feel included. They don't feel like someone else put rules on them that may or may not be fair or realistic, and they're like a child having to comply. It's more like we came up with this together, and we are going to hold each other accountable. And so there's just a lot less of that problems that come from hierarchy around that. These rules are non-negotiable, so safety. It's about safety. Nothing that we wouldn't expect from any of us all the time in society. The other rules, there's a book, a manual. That's where they created all the rules around the visitor policy, the pet policy, the quiet hours, the cleaning teams, the people that are banned from being here. All of that stuff is all things that they have control over, and they vote on democratically, and we can change. So we do votes every Thursday night. There's a mandatory community meeting Thursday night that everyone has to attend. And that's where the leaders run that meeting. And I meet with them before to build the agenda, just like at City Hall, maybe. We have an agenda session. And then there's the actual community meeting. And if we need to change a policy, they put it up for vote, and it's secret ballot. And even to like bring in a pet. If you want to bring in a pet, this gentleman over here is trying to campaign for being able to bring in a pet. Because you have to follow the pet policy, obviously, get the shots and all that, and you have to have approval from your neighbors. So if my behavior is out of control and chaotic and disruptive, and I had a pet and I left them, and then someone had to chip in to take care of my pet, they're probably not going to vote yes next time I try to bring in a pet. So that's kind of how we try to approach most things. Is it's not Solomon's rules and you just have to follow them. It's what makes sense to everyone, and then we will enforce that of what that fairness that we've all reached consensus on looks like. The second pain is a lot of stuff that might change. So like when the garden coach comes in, she's meeting with some people and then she'll leave notes like it's time to harvest this, or don't kill these bugs, or weed garden bed for it. So this is kind of a place I can come to get that information. A lot of people are not real tech savvy. So it's not like email or a Facebook group. We explored all those things, but the communication just doesn't work well. But something analog, whiteboard in a weather-tight thing like that can work for people. This was a resident that we lost a couple weeks ago. So we had our funeral up the road. It was really pretty. We actually made a memory book, and from everyone here, she had been estranged from her family for a very long time, and her kids. And so we made a beautiful memory book, and people wrote down their memories of her, having known her for many years, and at the funeral gave that to her kids. So hopefully as they get older, they'll have that. So you can see like menus. And then this is kind of usually more outside the village, broader community. So these are affordable housing alerts. The overnight staff does that. Let me find those affordable housing alerts. And then obviously in case management, they're looking for, someone that has income or has addressed some of the barriers that can impede you moving into housing. There's renter qualification issues for someone that's working on. Morning, Ronnie. Doing the tour. Ronnie often does the tour because he is probably the most charismatic person in this community. And I do throw him under the bus a lot. So housing is obviously our primary goal with people. We want to see people move out and remain stably housed for a year. That's our ultimate measure of success. And then along the way, a lot of those other metrics of success. But anyway, sometimes this would have just like free things to go do at the library, or I would say that's something we need to get better at, is figure out how to help people. We have a partnership with the occupational therapy department at U of A, the doctoral program. And so OT is focused on all the things that we need to do, want to do, and are expected to do on a daily basis. So caring for myself, caring for my clothes, caring for my home, attending my doctor appointments. But it's also things like leisure. And we don't think about that a lot. But like if you've been living outside for many years, and this is Egypt.
Hello, everybody.
Egypt is our social worker. Cute or whatever. Yeah. She is. She's amazing.
Casual Friday.
Yes.
I just want to
sneaking out.
Get one of our residents for something.
Okay. Leisure is really important to like mental health. Is one lesson I've learned in this last year is if I've been camping in the woods for 10 years, I'm just surviving. I don't know about my hobbies. I haven't like connected to like things that feed me and give me joy. Like I'm just surviving. And so the OTs have helped me kind of see how important, we get tickets to the theater, and we've taken some people to that. We do a cornhole tournament right here every month or two and have some prizes for it. We've done like a tie-dye t-shirt day, and everyone makes tie-dye shirts that wants to. So just trying to help people find and connect to things you just do when you're stressed out. Like do something you love. Like that is what all of us do to help cope with life. So leisure skills is one of those cool things. So finding out what are those free activities or cheap activities out there that I could get back into now that I have some of my basics squared away is actually a really important thing. So that's what we try to use this third pane for, is all those community-based resources. All right. We can go on to the kitchen, I think. My favorite part's just question and response and dialogue. So can I just ask anything come up for any of you as far as comments or thoughts or questions for how we do it here?
What's the average stay?
Yeah. So last year we had 7 people move out into permanent homes. We had 4 people move out into permanent supportive housing, which is housing that makes your rent affordable and has social services with it. So that's a HUD-funded program that the city of Fayetteville operates. One gentleman moved out just with his work, with the income he gets from employment, paying a rental unit that's not subsidized at all. He was really adamant. He didn't want any government assistance. He's a veteran. He didn't want any help from the VA. Really just wanted to do it on his own. So he did that. And that was the fifth person. Another person moved out with a housing choice voucher, so that's Section 8 voucher. That helps make my rent affordable, but it doesn't come with any social services. We still stay involved in his life. He does need occasional support, so our team is still available in that way. But as far as long term, what he moved out with was just a voucher that makes rent affordable. And then one person moved out into assisted living. Her needs were that deep. So really independent, mainstream housing just wasn't really an option. That kind of speaks to the variety of pathways for where you move out. Naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAA housing, people call it in the housing industry. Supportive housing is the best practice-based, evidence-based solution for chronic homelessness. Once you've been in this condition for 10 years, it's very likely that you'll have ongoing support needs around health, behavioral health, mental health. So supportive housing is great for that. And then just those vouchers that I think I can manage my life. I just need an affordable place. So that voucher helps make a unit affordable to me with my income, and he is on disability income. And then sometimes it is supported living. So 7 people out of 20. So last year there was that kind of 30% turnover. Our first year was just 2. 2 people moved out getting started. A lot of the progress, most people came in with no ID, no health insurance, 0 income. Not everyone, but the majority. And so the time it takes to actually get that stuff, and especially disability, can take very long. So first year 2, second year 7. We expect more than 7 this year. We actually got a grant to do some new supportive housing, so we'll have 3 people moving out that way. We spent about a year advocating to our city government to help with some of the American Rescue funds, and we use some of those funds to buy some duplexes. So we're opening our own supportive housing that's single site and scattered site, and that's in addition to the current capacities in the city. So we think we'll see more than 7 folks move out. But honestly, there are some people that have been here the whole time, the whole 2.5 years, a small handful. I ran a transitional housing program for a while. And one lesson I learned was how bad it felt to exit someone based on an artificial time frame of you've been here 18 months, therefore you have to move. So my view is if someone is engaged in their own recovery, then it takes as long as it takes. If there's a lady with disabilities who's elderly, who it's been 18 months, then it's been 18 months. Now, I feel like that's actually more of a Fayetteville problem. Where's the housing she can move out into? If she's got her IDs and she's got income, she's starting taking care of her health. Like, why don't we have affordable housing that she can move out into? I think that's a Fayetteville problem, not a Francis problem. That's kind of how I say that sometimes. Now, Francis does need to do her part. She's got to be doing the work with her sessions, taking care of her home, being a safe neighbor, attending all of her appointments and meetings. So if she becomes unengaged in that, that's when she's at risk for being exited from here. And so we do give that warning. You kind of have a month to fix it, to prove that you're back engaged. And then if you don't do that, then you will be exited. So we have had to exit, I think, 2 people that way. So they just become unengaged in their own plan, and someone else deserves the chance to use it this way. But there's been some people that have been here a long time, too.
The numbers.
Yeah.
How many staff? How are they paid? Does the city of Fayetteville have any money to put on housing that is affordable or affordable housing? Because there's no money.
Yeah. That's always the hardest piece. Yeah, we have 9 staff. We do staff 24/7. I also think that comes back to our focus population. There's many times a day and night that people really need a support person around for support, for safety. If I was choosing a different population, I may experiment with not having 24/7 staff and see how far you could get with this kind of village model, supporting people without having to have that round the clock. That's the most pricey part of what we do is every hour of every day there's a person here. It's usually just one person, which is also hard, honestly, because this can be a hard place to be some days. Some days it's great and peaceful, but it can be very stressful and deal with some scary stuff. And so sometimes the fact that it's just one person, that's expensive, but honestly, it'd be better to have more. So during the day, there is typically two people here. And now that the nurse is full-time, they'll always have two, sometimes three people. So yeah, our first year budget was about $500,000. We're up from that this year. We're adding some new services. We'll be hiring some life skills coach this year with some state level grant money that I got. But we started mostly with private donations. It took several years to get the private donations together. I did get a $1 million donation kind of at the cap of that from Jane Hunt, who's the daughter of John L. Hunt. And so that was huge to help us finish the construction. It cost about 1.1 to build all of this on this site. And then her funds have helped us the first 2.5 years of operating as well. So it's hard to get grants because often you have to prove your impact before you can qualify for a grant. So we knew in the opening probably private money, and then track the progress and be able to use that to apply for grants. And then often with grants, you're really not getting to spend that money till 9 months a year after you apply. Often, even if you're successful, you have to wait and then be awarded and then go through all the rigmarole.
So I've been down to Austin.
Yeah.
Incredible place.
Yeah.
Also, very impressed with your place. They actually have their tenants pay rent. A lot of that is through their SSI checks.
Right.
Do y'all do any of that?
We do in our permanent housing. So the duplexes we bought in that scattered site project, yes. So Community First Village, the largest, that tiny home village, about 400 tiny homes. And we've been through their replication program. We may be looking at trying to do something like that here. Okay. But that's permanent housing. So those homes most of them are PMRV, park model RVs. So they're on wheels, but they're like a 400 square foot or less tiny home. And yes, they pay 30%, or actually they don't pay. There's not income based. It's just set rent rates. They have a couple different rent rates. But yes, we'll do that in our permanent housing, but not here. So I view this more as the shelter part, that on-ramp to getting back to permanent housing. So we kind of talk about the sweat equity thing of like you don't pay rent, but you pay by taking care of the place, by working the front desk, by being on the leadership team, by attending all your meetings. Like it takes a big shift in your life focus to do that, to work on those things, to keep those appointments. And as long as you're doing that and you're meeting with your case manager and you're making progress, that's what we count as engagement. And so we don't charge financial rent. Most people have no income when they move in. Most people now have disability income. So we tracked like 13 out of 20 people last year participated in some work, whether it's project-based work or a part-time job, or we had 2 people that worked full-time last year. So there is income there, but they'll be working on like savings goals as a case management goal, but there's not actually rent here.
So, are you outside of city limits here?
No.
You are inside city limits, so you're having to meet code. When you first started talking about doing this, what was the community response? Did you get, well, if you build it, they will come, and so it's going to create more people, more homeless coming to Fayetteville if you create? Was that a response, and have you seen that?
Yeah, there's a really common narrative out there of if you offer services, you attract people. And in a sense, I think there's some truth in that, in the same way that like if you open a hospital, people will come through it. I don't think the hospitals create sickness or injuries, but if you offer that service, that's where people are going to find the help they need. We do have pretty decent data here. So University of Arkansas did a study. It's a couple years old now, but they, after we did our point in time count, they came behind that and did like a 3-hour interview with a sample size of people. And one of the learnings from that was that the homeless population and the house population is equally from here or moved here. In other words, it's just the same normal statistic. And that does apply to most national data too, is people are homeless in the place that they used to have housing, is predominantly true.
Did you get that?
I mean, I've known that.
Yeah.
I think we found like 80% of ours at Shawnee.
Wow, that's a good, not pushback. I get why people can be concerned about that, but that's a good just reframing of what is the narrative that is real. We might be afraid of it attracting people, but what's the real data tell us about our community? What was the other part you asked me there? Oh, the community response for when we built this. I think the address is really important. That's what Alan Graham, the founder of Community First in Austin, said was everyone loved our vision when we proposed building a tiny home community for homeless folks until we said the address. And then all the reasons go, oh, well, not here, not in my backyard. Yeah. And so strategically, this was a smart spot for us. It's vacant land. There's a homeless drop-in center right here. Seven Hills Day Center is right there. There's a recycling center right next door to that. And then this part of town, and this is where Salvation Army's at. Life Sources is at, like the south side of Fayetteville has always just been kind of been a lower resource, poor part of town. So we didn't have any direct NIMBY, no real complaints, no, brouhaha we had to overcome. But we would have if we chose to build in a different spot. I always recommend when people come through, if I could do it again, some of the things that would save us money would be like, if there's an old church, for example, that's not being used, a long-term lease situation or a purchase situation is smart there. I heard you referencing a campus. But the reason is you already have hard, flat surfaces for these pallet shelters. Like the site development costs here were like $250,000, $300,000. Having a level foundation you can just plop all these on would be An old church sometimes has like bathrooms, showers, a fellowship hall, a kitchen. Maybe it needs renovated, but the cost of doing that is probably a lot less than just buying something and bringing it on site. So we kind of chose to. Our vision was to come full circle for this land, to kind of have a redemptive story of like, this is where people camped without support, where there was violence, where there was death. And can we come full circle and support people, show people what it's like to build community together with those very same people, some of them that camped right here. But because we chose that, it actually was more expensive because we're trying to develop a patch of woods instead of reuse a building that maybe could have made it cheaper. But it was also a smart location. So those are some of the positive check marks, was we didn't have to have some of those NIMBY fights based on where we're at. But there's a bus stop right here. So that's one of the challenges at Community First. They had to get a special bus route that goes an hour outside of Austin every hour and then back in. And so that's how they had to. They tried 3 sites and were denied before someone donated land out in the county where the rules weren't as strict and they didn't have to fight the NIMBY fight and then bring the public transportation to them.
It was interesting when I was there. They were talking about how they had to have security because people that they weren't serving were trying to get in.
Yeah.
Do you experience any of that?
Yeah, I mean, so the fence is part of that, honestly, and that grew out of conversations with campers, especially women were telling me, I want to know who's inside the village when I get up at night to come and go to the bathroom. So that's part. The fence is not about keeping people in; it's about keeping the wrong people out. So that's why everyone here, they come and go as they please. I don't care if they show up at 2 a.m. But come and go as you please, but it keeps out the wrong people. We started the 24/7 staff thing with that in mind. I know a lot of the people without housing in our city. So I wanted to project a hard, harden yourself against whatever. Like I wanted everyone to know there's always a person here, that you can't even just come up to the fence and start trying to get someone's attention. Like someone's going to come interrupt you. Like that's not how this place works. So our staffing helps with that. And then we do have cameras. These poles have cameras on all the common areas, including this building. So the only parts that are private are your cabin and the bathrooms.
So when somebody moves out, what's your process for moving somebody in?
Right.
You have a long wait list. How do you
Yeah.
process that?
Yeah. So do y'all have an active continuum of care that Shawnee is part of, or no?
We're trying.
Trying. Hey, good. Hey, good.
It was turned in last August, we're still waiting.
Hey, awesome. Okay. I mean, I started working in homeless services like 10 years ago here, and we had nothing. You know, the COC, the continuum of care, was a phone call that happened every month, and it was, you know.
We're in a balanced state situation.
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
So it's like a 400-mile
Right.
wide geographic area, which is not very effective.
Right. It's
So
hard.
We have filed to become our own
Okay.
COC.
It's awesome.
We're waiting. If we could get word today, we don't know.
Yeah.
But hopefully.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we manage our enrollment. Is all the members of the continuum of care collaborate on creating a by name list of people without housing. It's not 100% accurate or comprehensive or timely, but it's significantly accurate and timely. And so whether you come in to Helping Hands in Rogers or Salvation Army in Bentonville or Seven Hills in Fayetteville, when you enter that front door of the service provider network, there's an assessment that you complete, and your name is put on that by name list. And so that assessment, probably be moving away from that assessment, that VIS BDAT, if anyone's familiar, but we currently do use that. And so that gives you a score from 1 to 17. And the higher your score, the more vulnerable you're considered. And so we prioritize for enrollment. When we have an open cabin, Egypt goes to the case conference meeting each Wednesday. That is a group of agencies, City of Fayetteville, the VA, all the agencies that help maintain that list. And they look at that list and then recommend referrals for New Beginnings based on long-term homelessness, high support need. In the same way that they refer to the VA, people that match VA criteria or match to, you know, a housing program that works for people with lower needs or people victims of domestic violence. Like that committee kind of refers out from the by name list to match to the best program to help that person. So we try not to silo that and kind of have our own waiting list. Everyone on that by name list that's chronically homeless is essentially on our waiting list. And so that's about 150 people that are chronically homeless. There's another 436 was our point in time count. Most recent, so 436. Yeah.
Not inflated by any factor.
Pardon?
Not inflated by any factor.
Correct. Yeah, these are all.
That's just raw number.
Yeah, raw number. Yeah. So the research out there would encourage you to 1.5 that or 2x that potentially, because that's on one given night with how good we were to contact all the people we could. But we had 436 interviews where the answer to the question, "Where did you sleep last night?" matched HUD's definition for literal homelessness. So 150 chronically homeless, that's essentially our waiting list. And that's why we're trying to focus on the housing that's kind of at the end of the road of recovery for chronically homeless people. We could double the size of this and then double it again and double, like we could do that and spend the money that it costs to do that kind of shelter community approach. But if you're familiar with the bathtub metaphor, where you have a bathtub and the water is coming in and then water is going out the drain hole, if you keep having water come in, one solution is to just expand the bathtub size and keep getting bigger and bigger to hold all that water. The other solution is to create a bigger drain hole so that throughput, you can deal with the higher water levels by having more throughput. And that's really our goal, is to have this be a shorter and shorter tenancy, so we're able to more quickly move people through and into more permanent homes integrated in the community. Or in a village model. We'll see how far we get down those different solutions. But that's how we'd like to see this program working optimally, is being a temporary kind of way station as people get those documents, get some healthcare started, get some life skill development started, and then have real permanent housing opportunities, which is really hard. There is no money. You have to go make it up. I mean, the rescue plan money, we really seized on rescue plan money. So like the state has rescue plan money we applied for support services. So some of the life skills and employment stuff will be money that we'll get to spend that way. The City of Fayetteville rescue plan money has helped us buy. We've got about $1 million to buy those duplexes. Ours was the only supportive housing project that HUD approved, the only new supportive housing project for the state of Arkansas. So that's the scattered site part, and that's just 3 households, but it's a start. So we got that, and that's renewable. When you have that's a COC grant, so that's pretty much automatically renewed. We'll get to support those 3 people indefinitely in their homes with our team. So
Who writes your grants?
I do, and then I do have a admin coordinator who does a lot of things for me, but she does help with the grant writing as well. Especially the admin. So I'll do probably most of the writing still myself, but all of the legwork that comes with the portals and the document collect, all that she helps with.
And
She's
then
very
the tracking
efficient.
and the reporting.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we're rolling out a new software actually. We've been small enough that we kind of get by without a lot of the expensive software, but paid $11,000 for Apricot. So it's a social solutions product. It's I think it's the best around the country. And that's going to help us track for our village program, our medical respite, which will probably serve more people each year than our village does, and then our supportive housing programs in the same software, so we can track all those important
So is it similar
areas.
to like a charity tracker?
A little bit,
or
yep.
Something like that, where all entities can input to see
That's right.
duplication and
That's right. Yes.
stuff. Kudos to you for the medical component of that. I also serve on a hospital board, and that's something that we talk about regularly is what happens when they leave.
Right.
And we know that they're leaving without a home.
Right.
So I loved that.
Thank you. I appreciate the encouragement. Yeah, we got a Washington Regional is the nonprofit hospital in Fayetteville, so I have to thank them for that partnership because they have such a credibility. They helped our grant application, I think, succeed because they signed on for it, and then they volunteer their time, and they see that issue. I think that's why half the fundraising. We did a fundraiser last week. We're still fundraising to pay for this program this year, and it was the doctors that donated more than anyone else because they see it on a daily basis that we need a place to heal. And that's the name of our program.
So for your long-term housing, have you looked into LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits?
Yeah, LIHTC development is the most common financing tool used in affordable housing construction in the U.S. It is a very complicated process. Usually developers that do LIHTC are specialists in LIHTC. So if your community has one of those, that's your partner. If you don't, you would need a developer that really wants to become a specialist in that because it is a very lengthy, very complicated scenario, but it is utilized a lot. We've met with there's a nonprofit developer here, Community Development Corporation, and they have done many LIHTC projects over the last 30, 40 years. And so we have met with them potentially to build something. There's a lot of just cost and benefits to weigh on it. LIHTC projects are typically large. You need at minimum like 80 units to make it pencil, at least in our market context. And so that means, especially if our mission is chronically homeless people, that would mean either a large multifamily development exclusively for folks with this background, and then you really need to find the support services side of that, because if you put 80 people with this background in one place, you had better be invested in the services that would help them be stable and get along. Or you do percentages within that overall development, and that changes your scoring and all that. But our vision would be more excited about a more community integrated, like neighborhood integrated approach. So like our duplexes is 8 units in an established neighborhood. So we'll be doing programming with those current neighbors to try to create a neighborhood of welcome, to be neighbors to people recovering from homelessness. And then also some accountability for our people. We have to be good neighbors too. And we do some of that here too. We make contact with our neighbors. Like, are we too loud? Are we dogs barking too loud? Is there shouting matches that are bothering you? Like, we are accountable to be neighbors as a village. And so we like the infill. My point I'm trying to make is I like the infill approach better than maybe a single site large project. So our conversation with LIHTC developers is more around the developments that are happening, more workforce housing based projects here. Is there a percentage set aside, even if it's 5% or 2%, where we could be partnered on a couple of the units in yours that could be for our graduates? And in that case, it would be a more mixed income, community integrated model. But we wouldn't be in the driver's seat of the LIHTC project. We'd be more just partnered in on projects that are already making sense to other developers.
I love the infill. Are you getting any donated lots through your county to your city, to you as a nonprofit of infill lots?
We're working on it. Nothing yet. Our city is very sympathetic and supportive of the mission. Financially, honestly, I'm loving seeing your commitment level. All coming over together and learning about what you want to do next. We didn't get financial support from our city. We got some development fees waived and stuff like that, but this was largely privately funded. But then the duplexes is our city, really wanting to support that next step for people moving out from here. So that was a major support, financial support. Our county is really, really not yet. We applied for different funding opportunities and we haven't got anything there. But especially if we did the village model, I think that we could probably find a partnership with our county on just for the land part.
Now that you've been here a few years, how is the relationship with the neighbors?
10 out of 10.
I would imagine they would much prefer what you have now versus the unsanctioned camp that was here.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we have good relationships. We have the end of the road is a motorcycle gang headquarters. Interesting. So they keep to themselves.
Going for lunch.
That's where you're going for lunch. Perfect. We haven't had to deal with a lot of neighbors, to be honest, but we have good relationships with the neighbors we do have.
Demographics, what's your age range and split between female and male?
Yeah, we track with the national data on chronic homelessness, so it's usually a 50s and 60s. It's usually middle to older age, usually single, but not always. We actually started with the front 4 cabins as couple cabins. All we changed was having a big bed in there instead of a small bed. And one of our learnings was the domestic situations that we got put in the middle of were just really impossible. It's 2 a.m. and there's been fighting and both sides are accusing the other and whatever. And like, what do you do? And you just feel really helpless, honestly. So we ended up having the policy that even couples have their individual cabins. And they can be in each other's cabins as much as they want, but they always have that retreat, which honestly makes sense. I mean, probably most of us trying to live in 100 square feet with our significant other wouldn't work out real well either. We might do
On vacation.
So older, our split's about even. It's a little bit more men than women. I have tried to be attentive to that, honestly. I think on the streets, women are in a more vulnerable circumstance. So even though probably it's a higher percentage of men, there's a higher vulnerability for women. Racially, we are about 15-20% African American, maybe 5% Hispanic, and then the rest about 70% white. There's typically an overrepresentation of people of color in homelessness, Native American as well as African American. Also, LGBTQ folks are overrepresented in the homeless population, so we do see that in our population as well. It's probably only like 10%, 8 to 10%. I'm picturing a few people, whether it's transgender or gay. But as a percentage of the overall population, that's a high percentage in terms of overrepresentation. Family-wise, so we don't allow anyone under 18. We do have one person here who has a child that is under 18. that wasn't in his custody. It's not in his custody. The child is not, but the child does come and visit, and so that's cool. It's actually been one of the beautiful things to see him get to actually spend time with his kid,
But not overnight.
but not overnight. Correct. There's the exit time for any visitor is 7 o'clock here, and that's their rule, and that's for the summer. It's usually 5 o'clock, but I think it's because we're moving into the summer season. They changed it to 7. But yeah, we don't serve minors. We don't prohibit sex offenders. So the level 3 and 4 is disqualified automatically, but level 1 and 2 is a case by case basis, and that was part of the thinking. For the family scenario, like it is a little bit rare for a family to end up being chronically homeless because usually there are services that intervene before it becomes a chronically homeless situation. But it does happen. I mean, I certainly have seen it. It's just rare. And then the presence of children in a context where there's a lot of people that have, criminal history issues, behavioral health issues, including active addiction, and potentially, we haven't actually served a sex offender yet, but it's in our policy book that we would case by case accept. It was all of that kind of factored into not building for families and not designing the programming around families.
Going back to your waiting list
Yeah.
for just a second. So I have some programs that are federally funded,
Right.
and so I have to do a first in, first served. Because you're not receiving any federal funds, you don't have to abide by that. You can kind of look at it case by case and move them.
We do receive some federal grant money.
Okay.
So the way that coordinated entry committee at the Continuum of Care works is, so there's policies that the coordinated entry committee determines for this continuum of care that is about the prioritization.
Okay.
So that list prioritizes, for our program, prioritizes vulnerability score rather than first in, first out, or even just duration. It's about vulnerability score. And so it's meant to include physical health, social health. So the questions on a VIS-BDAT are both about your health, but also things like, do you think people take advantage of you? Do you understand? So like the kind of testing for like functionally, do you kind of understand how the world works, or do you find that you're always getting taken advantage of? Do you have like really serious health risk behavior that's part of your life? Do people bully and coerce you into doing things? Those are questions on the VIS-BDAT. So in addition to the health, mental health, some of those kind of social vulnerabilities is what's included in that assessment. So a higher score means you have a harder time with a lot of different areas of life. And so that's who we end up prioritizing. And then that group is also able to, in a policy level, like CE policy, the coordinated entry policy, define community priorities around, there's preference points for a veteran. There's a preference point for a racial minority. There's a preference point for an LGBTQ member. There's a preference point for a person fleeing domestic violence. Preference point for an elderly person. So that committee, when looking at those names, it kind of helps the community define where are the priorities for where the vulnerability is the most acute, and how can we have a system that helps those people kind of get to the front of that line.
So what kind of federal funding do you get?
Well, our PSH program is a COC, that's a HUD-funded deal. We have EFSP money, the Emergency Food and Shelter Board is ultimately federal money through an LRO locally. Our ESG funding is ultimately federal money, so that
ESG
Emergency Solutions Grant. So that's a HUD to state level, and then you have that, yeah.
We are no longer eligible.
Ah.
We just got cities out.
You got what out?
Cities were declared non-eligible.
Oh, governments are, okay, just jurisdictions can't. ESG, don't need it. Hell, you know what? Sometimes it's not worth the calories you spend getting it and managing it.
True. However,
But it was a big help.
it was
Yeah.
a big help.
Yeah, we don't get I wish we got a lot
Was
more.
that
in all
the
this.
portable
It
shower?
was the portable showers. It was the portable, the porta potties. It was also homeless mitigation. mean, there were many different things that we tried out just to see how they would work
Right.
within the area, and we are now
Not
ineligible. That's a very recent change.
Yeah, that sucks. So is anyone here like leading a nonprofit though, like a private nonprofit? That's what I thought I heard you saying. Could y'all get ESG money then?
So long as we're in the continuum of care, the
Right.
ESG project is just terribly small.
Yes. Yeah, you got to have a functioning COC, and you do have, and then the pot of money is very small. Do you use any CDBG money for homeless service program?
So we have CDBG money. We are an entitlement city. We historically we're still in the fourth year of our 5-year plan. We historically use that for home renovations, so owner-occupied home renovations, because we have a terribly old housing stock.
Yeah.
And so trying to allow people to stay within their homes. We've had for a number of years a time when we did not pursue remodels and maintenance codes and anything else like that. So the housing stock has suffered even more than just its level age. But ideally, for the next 5-year plan, we are looking at allocating the money differently, because we found that we're spending $80,000 renovation on a house that's worth $80,000.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not going to last.
Right. Well, that's good. So your consolidated plan could reflect some reevaluation of priorities. But it's also cool. I mean, it's all connected, you know. I mean, so I hate to. Sometimes it's the pie of the money available. Like you can spend it on making home ownership affordable, and so that you can help make rentals more affordable and more whatever. You can help with homeless rehousing. It's all of them matter, and it's all connected. So it's hard to know where sometimes to put the priority.
We don't have enough housing stock to begin with.
Hey.
I think that's one of the areas we need to start in. So
Yeah.
I know that the city, if we had more lots, we would turn them over.
Yeah.
We currently only have one developer who's really interested in MyTech, and he could be approaching retirement. Who knows?
Ooh.
He's been doing this for so many
Yep.
years. The county has a tremendous amount of lots.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
That
Who's with the county?
I had the conversation yesterday, so I want to follow up with
Yes,
her.
please, because
She's ready.
perfect.
Oh, that's great.
She's probably getting it from both sides, because I checked temperature.
You know, counties can access some of that USDA housing money too. So the rural housing funds a little bit. Yeah, we've been part of a collective of mostly nonprofits, but some faith communities as well, getting our city to declare an affordable housing crisis. And they did pass a resolution a couple weeks ago, a consensus resolution. The data is just so stark. And Northwest Arkansas is growing very fast. It's a very hot market. So the affordability, I mean, rent has gone up. I believe the number is 27% in the last 3 years.